Welcome to this explainer. So for the last 50 years, the medical consensus on weight loss has been built on this single, supposedly unbreakable rule, right? Calories in, calories out. But what if that rule is actually completely broken? Today, we're diving straight into the source material from Dr. Jason Fung's The Obesity Code. We're going to see exactly why everything we've been taught about weight loss for the last half-century might just be completely wrong. Let's get into it.
Now, the sheer scale of this failure is it's staggering. A 300% increase. Think about that. For more than 30 years, doctors have earnestly recommended low-fat, calorie-reduced diets as the absolute gold standard for treating obesity. And yet, despite us following this universal advice, obesity rates have absolutely skyrocketed. Just to put it in perspective, between 1985 and 2011, the prevalence of obesity in Canada tripled, going from 6% to 18%. And as the source notes, this isn't just happening in North America. This is a global phenomenon. We've literally been doing exactly what the doctor ordered, and we've only grown heavier.
To unpack all of this, we'll be exploring the following. 1. The calorie reduction myth. 2. The insulin weight gain paradox. 3. The chaos of nutritional advice. 4. Why nutrition research fails. 5. The hormonal theory of obesity. And finally, 6. Guidelines for lasting treatment.
Starting off with Section 1, the calorie reduction myth, why 50 years of medical advice failed.
So the author points out something really fascinating about the medical field. Sometimes treatments become the standard, even when they don't actually work at all. It's just sheer inertia. These ineffective treatments somehow get handed down from one generation of doctors to the next, surviving way longer than they should. The text actually makes this brilliant, kind of shocking comparison between our modern dietary advice and totally outdated, archaic practices, like using leeches for bloodletting or doing routine, completely unnecessary tonsillectomies. Crazy, right?
And that brings us to a pretty harsh reality check. Virtually every person who has used caloric reduction for weight loss has failed. I mean, really think about that for a second. Who hasn't tried cutting calories at some point? Yet by every objective measure, this deeply ingrained dogma of treating obesity as just a simple caloric imbalance has given us a global treatment plan that is utterly ineffective. But despite failing time and time again, nutritional authorities still defend it vigorously.
Moving on to Section 2, the insulin weight gain paradox, a nephrologist's dilemma.
This is where the story gets super personal for the author. You see, Dr. Fung is a nephrologist, a kidney specialist. Now, the most common cause of kidney disease is type 2 diabetes, which we know is closely linked with obesity. So he found himself constantly prescribing insulin to his diabetic patients, knowing full well it was going to make them gain weight. His patients were incredibly frustrated. They'd ask him, "Doctor, you've always told me to lose weight, but the insulin you just gave me makes me gain so much weight. How is this helpful?" And honestly, they hit the nail on the head. This glaring contradiction forced the medical community and Dr. Fung himself to take a long, hard look in the mirror.
So here's the absolute crux of this paradox. Like pretty much every other doctor, Dr. Fung used to believe that weight gain was strictly a caloric imbalance, eating too much and moving too little. But if that were entirely true, how on earth could a prescribed medication like insulin cause such relentless weight gain? If getting heavy is only about excess calories, a drug shouldn't be able to force a patient to pack on pounds without them changing a single thing about their diet. This massive realization completely exposed the flaw in our basic understanding of obesity. All right, Section 3, the chaos of nutritional advice, the lack of a theoretical framework.
Because we haven't had a proper framework to explain this whole insulin paradox, nutritional advice has basically devolved into absolute chaos. Seriously, you have highly respected experts saying dietary fat is the devil, while others are out there saying no, dietary fat is totally essential and carbs are the real enemy. It's a massive, exhausting game of contradiction. Milk is good for you. Wait, no, milk is bad. Count your calories. Actually, calories don't count. It is completely overwhelming for anyone just trying to figure out how to be healthy.
And this chaos really highlights the core issue, the complete lack of a solid theoretical framework. This vacuum has led to some ridiculously simplistic theories. People try to blame a highly complex chronic disease on just one single isolated factor. Whether they're pointing the finger at calories, carbs, meat, fat, or a lack of time on the treadmill, these theories completely fall apart. Why? Because they totally ignore how all of these elements actually interact within the incredible complex ecosystem of the human body.
Which leads us directly into Section 4, why nutrition research fails, rats, cows, and lions.
To really drive home the pitfalls of nutritional research, the author uses this fantastic, kind of funny analogy called the parable of the cow. Okay, so imagine two cows having a chat about the latest research done on lions. The study shows that eating meat is great for you, so the cows decide to start eating meat and, well, shortly afterward they die. A year later, two lions read a groundbreaking study done on cows, proving that eating grass is the way to go. The lions start eating grass and, yep, they die too. The moral of the story here? We are not cows, we are not lions, and most importantly for medical research, we are not mice.
Basically, we desperately need to redefine what we accept as evidence-based medicine. If we want to find out what actually causes weight gain in humans, we can't just take every piece of low-quality evidence at face value. A study based on 5 rats absolutely does not prove that a diet will reverse heart disease in a human being. We are not chimpanzees, and we're not spider monkeys. We have to focus strictly on high-quality, peer-reviewed human studies to find actual causes, rather than just pointing at loose associations.
Plus, there's a massive problem with the timeline of all this research. Obesity is a chronic long-term disease. It usually takes decades to fully develop. But our nutritional guidelines, they're often based on studies that only last a few weeks. The author gives this brilliant analogy. If you wanted to understand how rust develops on a piece of metal, you'd need to watch it over weeks or months, not just stare at it for a couple of hours. So relying on short-term studies to understand a decades-long disease, it's pretty much useless.
Now for the real game changer. Section 5. The hormonal theory of obesity. A new medical model.
This right here is the paradigm shift we've been building toward. The hormonal theory of obesity completely throws out that broken calories in, calories out model. Instead, it gives us a robust explanation of obesity not as some kind of moral failing where you just lack willpower, but as a genuine medical problem driven by a hormonal imbalance. Specifically, it points the finger directly at high blood insulin and insulin resistance. Insulin is the master hormone here. It's the one truly pulling the strings and regulating our body weight.
Having this robust explanation finally gives us a real structure to understand the bigger picture, like why is obesity linked to poverty? What's really driving childhood obesity? By focusing on insulin, we can finally shift our attention to treating the actual root cause of the disease, rather than just playing whack-a-mole and handing out a different pill for every symptom. You know, a pill for your diabetes, a pill for blood pressure, a pill for cholesterol. It targets the source.
Let's bring it all together in our final section. Section 6. Guidelines for lasting treatment, fixing the hormonal imbalance.
Okay, so how do we actually fix our hormones? By targeting that imbalance directly, the source provides some incredibly clear guidelines for bringing those insulin levels down. First off, reduce added sugars and refined grains. Those are the things that spike your insulin the absolute most. Next, you want to keep your protein consumption moderate while making sure to add healthy fats and fiber back into your diet. And crucially, utilize intermittent fasting. This gives your body a much-needed break from those constant insulin spikes. Beyond just what you eat, improving your sleep and managing stress is absolutely vital to lower cortisol, because cortisol is another sneaky hormone that constantly drives up insulin. These guidelines let you completely bypass the miserable, exhausting cycle of traditional calorie restriction.
And what's genuinely so exciting about this approach is that techniques like intermittent fasting and managing your cortisol levels don't just put a Band-Aid on things. They actually treat the underlying condition itself, insulin resistance. Instead of literally starving your body of energy while your hormones are still screaming at it to store fat, you're resetting the hormonal instructions entirely. This paves the way for lasting, permanent weight management. It's a totally fresh framework, and it offers some very real hope for a much healthier future.
Now, I know that challenging 50 years of entrenched dietary dogma is pretty unsettling, but Dr. Fung's work really forces us to ask those hard questions about what actually causes weight gain. The science points directly to insulin, and we know for a fact that the old calorie-counting methods have objectively failed us. So I want to leave you with this final, vital question for your own health journey. Are you ready to finally stop counting calories and start balancing your hormones?